Good night. Malaysian 370. Just 6 words. A polite, concise farewell, like the thousands of radio exchanges between captains and control towers that happen every day. But this time, it was the last sentence ever heard from Flight MH370. At 1:19 a.m. on March 8, 2014, the Boeing 777 departing from Kuala Lumpur en route to Beijing sent off a goodbye as gentle as the wind, and then vanished without a trace. No distress signal. No reply. Just a cold, silent rupture in the night sky. We live in an era of satellites, radar, and artificial intelligence. A world where every click leaves a trail. And yet, a massive aircraft carrying 239 souls simply evaporated mid-air, as if swallowed by the primordial ocean itself. More than a decade has passed. Massive search operations have been launched, billions of dollars have been spent, and hundreds of theories have been proposed, only to collapse under scrutiny. And with each failed attempt, the mystery deepens. What truly happened to MH370? Was it merely a technical failure, or a metaphysical warning from a realm beyond human reach? The disappearance of MH370 is not just a missing plane. It is a dark mirror reflecting the limits of our modern world. Against the boundless shadows of the deep sea. Malaysian Airlines Flight MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur at 12:41 a.m. on March 8, 2014. The sky was clear. Flying conditions were ideal. No technical warnings. No passengers or crew members showed any signs of abnormality. Everything began like a routine night, a journey less than 6 hours long, gently carrying 239 people toward Beijing as they slept peacefully above the clouds. But that peace lasted only 38 minutes. As the aircraft approached the boundary between Malaysian and Vietnamese airspace, at precisely 1:21 a.m., something unexplainable occurred. MH370 suddenly vanished from civilian radar screens. No distress call. No positioning signal. The transponder, an instrument that allows ground control to track the plane, had been turned off. Not due to a malfunction. Not due to weather. But manually, by human hands. Only military radar could still track its path. And what it recorded sent chills down the spine of the entire world. The Boeing 777, instead of continuing north to Beijing, performed a sharp 180-degree turn, then veered inexplicably to the southwest, flew across the Malaysian peninsula, and according to satellite data, continued flying for another 6 hours, into the desolate southern Indian Ocean, a region with no commercial flight paths at all. The question is, who was in control of the aircraft? Imagine a ship sailing steadily through the night, suddenly turning back, shutting off all signal lights, drifting silently into the darkness, as if determined never to be found again. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, with over 18,000 flight hours, was a seasoned pilot, highly respected by colleagues. No signs of depression. No debts. No farewell letter. In the cockpit with him was a young co-pilot, on his first official flight in a Boeing 777. A veteran and a novice. Could conflict have arisen between them? Or was it all meticulously planned? No one knows what happened inside that cockpit after 1:19 a.m. But the radar data and satellite signals tell a different story. MH370 didn't crash from a failure. It didn't spiral out of control. It followed a secret path, deliberate and intentional. And if that's true, then who was guiding this plane beyond the eyes of the world? And more chillingly, why? The deeper we trace that strange and silent route, the more it feels like we are looking not at an accident, but at a decision. A decision wrapped in shadow. When all radars had gone silent, when the control tower was left staring at nothing but an empty screen, it seemed as though MH370 had vanished entirely from the world of the living. And yet, there remained one kind of signal. Faint. Silent. Echoing every hour from the abyss between sky and sea. They were the handshakes, mysterious pings from the Inmarsat satellite. A sequence of signals, designed not to locate a plane or transmit coordinates, but merely to check if the onboard satellite link was still functioning. It carried no location, no voice, no message, just a technical whisper. "I'm still here." For 7 hours after contact was lost, MH370 kept sending out those eerie handshakes, like a ghost aircraft drifting through the dark ocean sky. No one knew why the systems were still active. No one knew who was piloting it. No one knew where it was heading. To trace its flight path, investigators turned to what seemed like an unlikely tool, the Doppler effect, a physics principle most often used to explain the pitch of a passing ambulance siren. And yet, this became the key to reconstructing the trajectory of a vanishing jetliner. By analyzing the shift in frequency of the radio waves bouncing back from the aircraft, experts could reverse engineer its movement, like tracking the echo of a lost bird deep within a cave. And what they discovered stunned the world. MH370 had not flown north, as many theories had suggested. It didn't head toward Kazakhstan. It did not secretly land at a Central Asian airbase. Instead, it had gone south. Into the vast, desolate expanse of the southern Indian Ocean, one of the most remote, uninhabited regions on Earth. There were no islands there. No radar stations. No signs of life. Only an endless sea, where the waves carry no memory, and time itself seems to sleep. So then, why would a commercial aircraft, carrying 239 human beings, fly for 7 hours, only to plunge into the edge of the world? This is no longer a technical question. It is a call from the abyss of the irrational. The more we analyze, the more we sense, MH370 didn't just go missing. It was taken, drawn by a force beyond comprehension. A plane drifting as if trapped in a dream, where the laws of physics blur and bend. Were those signals merely data? Or, were they cries for help from the dark? Or perhaps, the final echoes of a vessel that slipped away from our world, never to return? And if it did reach the ends of that ocean, has anyone ever touched the place where it rests? Or is it still floating, like a phantom, amid cold waves and an ocean without a floor? To the rest of the world, MH370 is a mystery. But to more than 200 families, it is a wound without a name. No ending. No beginning. Just a void, so hollow, it suffocates. He only sent 3 words, getting on plane, and then, silence forever. I called back at 3 a.m., the line was still ringing, but no one ever picked up. My mother keeps dreaming of my father standing in the fog. He says nothing. Just looks. The same dream, for 7 years. These memories drift like smoke, curling backward toward that night of March 8th. No one could have imagined that the final message they received would be a silent farewell, never spoken, never understood, until it was too late. But what hurts more than loss, is uncertainty. There were no bodies to bury. No funerals to attend. No graves to visit. No date to mark the end, and begin healing. In the eyes of the law, they remain missing persons, not the deceased. This placed hundreds of families in a limbo of suspended insurance claims, prolonged court battles, and children denied inheritance because their parents had not been legally confirmed dead. I had to declare my husband dead, just to apply for my daughter's scholarship. Every day is a new waiting, followed by a new disappointment. Some kept the room untouched. The cup still on the table. The pajamas still hanging. As if the one who left, might still come home. Some printed hundreds of posters, wrote letters to authorities, to scientists, even to psychics. Because if they didn't, what would be left? Hope, no matter how fragile, was the only thing that didn't vanish into the night of March 8th. A solitary light that has never fully gone out. If a plane can disappear without a trace, then maybe, just maybe, they're still out there, somewhere. In their search for truth, the families didn't just face the ocean. They faced the cold walls of bureaucracy, the strange silences of official voices. And, at times, theories so wild they tore at the heart. Some still return to the airport, waiting, every day. Some have learned to live with a void that no word can name. But all of them, in some deep, quiet way, still hear the final echo from that cockpit long ago. All right, good night. A farewell that has never truly been answered. The moment MH370's final signal disappeared into the night sky, an unprecedented search operation began, spanning vast oceans, crossing geopolitical lines, and stretching over the course of years. More than 26 countries, Malaysia, China, Australia, the US, the UK, France, and others, joined the hunt. They deployed hundreds of reconnaissance flights, naval ships, drones, and both military and civilian satellites. The total estimated cost exceeded $200 million, yet the true price could never be measured in dollars. Because this was not merely a search for a missing aircraft, it was a struggle against the invisible. The Indian Ocean, believed to be MH370's final resting place, is no gentle sea. On the contrary, it is cold, vast, and treacherous. Waves as high as 20 meters can swallow any vessel. Its average depth exceeds 4,000 meters, with trenches reaching beyond 6,000, chasms no human has ever descended into. The seabed here is not only deep, but largely uncharted, filled with cracks, cliffs, and thick layers of sediment that blur sonar signals into noise. Investigators employed the most advanced technologies of the time. Towfish sonar arrays, floating buoys to capture underwater sounds, hydrophones to detect anomalies in the deep. But it was like searching for a needle in an ocean, when you're not even certain the needle exists. The search followed satellite data from Inmarsat, which suggested the aircraft flew for 7 more hours after vanishing from radar, ending somewhere in the remote southern Indian Ocean. But the sea doesn't bow to theories. Tens of thousands of square kilometers were scoured, by machines, by human eyes, by faith. And yet, all that was left, were blank maps. It wasn't until July 2015, over a year after the plane disappeared, that a piece of the aircraft's wing washed ashore on Reunion Island in the western Indian Ocean. Subsequent analysis confirmed, this was part of MH370. It was the first, and remains the most definitive, physical evidence ever recovered. But that fragment was more than just a clue. It was a painful reminder that the ocean can bury all secrets. And yet, sometimes, it allows a sliver of truth to surface. Just enough to reignite hope. Never enough to reveal the full story. From 2015 to 2017, the search, now led by Australia, grew more sophisticated. Autonomous submersibles and underwater drones capable of 3D terrain mapping were deployed. Search zones were calculated using algorithms, ocean current models, and impact simulations. But by January 2018, after combing more than 120,000 square kilometers of seafloor without uncovering further clues, the operation officially ended. Hope sparked again when a private company, Ocean Infinity, took over the search. Equipped with a fleet of cutting-edge unmanned vessels, they believed they could finally find the wreckage. But this time too, the ocean remained silent. Its waves had seemingly swallowed all evidence. No black boxes. No fuselage. No final confession. Only maps marked with XS, and entire stretches of sea crossed out. The search for MH370 became a symbol, not only of a grief that refuses to fade, but of the very limits of human technology, knowledge, and willpower. When confronting a mystery, guarded by the ocean itself. And sometimes, the silence of the deep is the most powerful resistance to the pursuit of truth. After nearly a decade of silence and despair, the ocean calls out once more. Not with certainty, but with an unyielding longing that refuses to fade. To find MH370, the plane that vanished like a phantom, in the very heart of modern humanity. In March 2025, Ocean Infinity, a deep-sea technology firm from the United States, returned to the scene of the tragedy with a bold promise. No find, no fee. A challenge that carried the tone of faith, or desperation. Perhaps both. Because some things cannot be priced in dollars. And truth is one of them. This time, there would be no crowded ships. In their place stood the Armada, a fleet of unmanned vessels powered by artificial intelligence, operating 24/7 in the heart of the ocean. Emotionless. Tireless. Fearless. These machines were now searching for what humanity had long pursued in vain. A trace. Even a fracture in the abyss. To answer the millions of questions that have never found a voice. On the mothership, an array of automated devices was deployed. Among them, the Hugin 6000 submersibles, mechanical, diverse, capable of descending over 6,000 meters. They scanned the seafloor using synthetic aperture sonar, producing ultra-high-resolution images in total darkness. Data was streamed in real time to command centers, where AI systems, powered by deep learning algorithms, analyzed, identified, and compared each object and indentation to a Boeing 777 model. This was no longer a blind search in the dark, as it was in 2014. This time, analysts had a new hypothesis, one born from thousands of hours of radar decoding, aerodynamic simulations, and flight behavior analysis. It suggested that the aircraft might have glided for a significant distance, like a severed kite drifting through the sky. If true, MH370 may have flown much farther than the original search zone. And so, a new area, spanning more than 15,000 square kilometers, was mapped out. No longer based on faint satellite signals from the past, but on detailed modeling of an unpowered glide. A maneuver the captain may have attempted before the aircraft disappeared forever from the sky. Amid the roaring swells of the southern Indian Ocean, where the wind never rests, and the waters are jagged like teeth, the Armada fleet glided in. No crew. No lights. Only dark ripples. And sonar pulses echoing from the unseen deep. No voices. No eyes watching from the deck. Only cold, soulless signals transmitted back to base. Yet they carried within them the greatest hope we have ever placed into the hands of the ocean floor. Once again, humanity finds itself facing the eternal question. Amid boundless seas and cutting-edge technology, can we finally discover what happened that night? Will the ocean release its grip this time? Or will the secret of MH370 remain imprisoned? Like a curse. A final riddle nature has laid at the feet of human intellect. Every missing aircraft leaves a hole in the human psyche. But with MH370, the void isn't just in space. It is a tear in our belief. In technology. In science. And perhaps, even in fate itself. 10 years have passed. Millions of pages have been analyzed. Thousands of hours of radar logs, satellite data, and flight simulations have been decoded. And yet, the simplest question remains unanswered. What really happened in the early hours of March 8, 2014? Here are 4 prominent theories. Not to conclude, but to open a labyrinth, where every path leads deeper into the shadows of doubt. 1. The pilot, a man who carried fate into the sky. The most controversial theory, yet quietly accepted by many aviation experts, is that the crash was intentional, orchestrated by the pilot. Zahari Ahmad Shah, a seasoned captain with over 18,000 flight hours, was at the helm of MH370. Investigators later discovered that his home flight simulator had been used to chart a route eerily similar to the presumed MH370 path, an arc into the deep southern Indian Ocean, ending in desolation. Why was the ACAR's communication system disabled just minutes after the aircraft left civilian radar? Why was there no distress call, no mayday, no voice, only silence? Was this a desperate act? Or a final message? Sent from a fractured mind? In complete quiet. 2. The silent fuse, a deadly technical failure. Not everyone accepts the theory of deliberate intent. Some independent investigators propose that MH370 may have fallen victim to a slow, undetected fire in the cargo hold, where hundreds of kilograms of lithium-ion batteries were stored. These materials can combust without warning. In such a case, a serious electrical failure could have occurred, prompting the crew to turn back urgently toward Langkawi, the first flight path MH370 took after dropping off radar. But if fire and smoke infiltrated the cockpit, the crew may have lost consciousness, leaving the aircraft to drift silently, like a ghost ship in the sky. 3. A hidden hand, external interference. In a world never lacking in shadows and secret forces, the theory of outside intervention, whether hijacking or sabotage, cannot be ruled out. Some point to the systematic disabling of communication systems and the aircraft's complex maneuvers as signs of trained hands. Yet the paradox remains. No group ever claimed responsibility. No demands were made. No ransom. No political message. If this were a hijacking, why choose a silent death beneath the ocean, instead of sending a global message? Or, was there a force powerful enough to erase everything? 4. The final attempt, a failed landing. In a simulated flight model, analysts determined that Christmas Island, a remote landmass with a suitable runway, could have served as an emergency landing site. One theory suggests the crew attempted to land there, but something went wrong, or something changed, and they turned away once more. Perhaps due to technical failure, or perhaps under coercion. From there, the aircraft may have drifted southward, its systems disabled, or possibly, with no one left at the controls. It wasn't a single event, but a domino effect. These were the words of a veteran air crash investigator, summarizing what may be the closest we have to understanding MH370. Not one cause, but a chain of errors. A fire, misjudged. A route, miscalculated. A call for help, unheard. And in the end, a pilotless plane descending silently into the abyss. No one knows where the truth lies. But like the ocean that keeps its secrets beyond the reach of any probe, the truth of MH370 may forever drift in the lowest trench of history, where light never touches, and only the echo of unanswered questions remains. Some tragedies may never be fully explained, and yet their impact echoes far beyond the limits of time, space, and even life itself. MH370 disappeared into silence, leaving hundreds of families shattered. But from that void, the global aviation industry was forced to listen, and to change. Before MH370, the idea that a massive commercial jet could simply vanish from the sky seemed impossible. But after MH370, no one dared to think that again. The International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, swiftly enacted new regulations. As of 2021, all civilian aircraft flying over oceans must transmit their position at least once every 15 minutes. A small interval, perhaps, but one that could serve as a lifeline. A final breadcrumb on the trail, should the unimaginable happen again. This was followed by a leap forward in satellite-based tracking. ADS-B, Automatic Dependent Surveillance, broadcast, once effective only near ground stations, was launched into orbit. Now, satellites watch the skies 24/7. Missing nothing. Whether it's above desert, ocean, or the Antarctic expanse. From the vast unknown, the skies have never been more visible. And still the transformation continued. The black box, the so-called final memory of every flight, underwent major upgrades. Its backup battery now lasts up to 90 days. With enhanced signal strength to transmit even from the deepest ocean trenches. A small change, but one that could determine whether a wreck is found or lost forever. The shock of MH370 also forced the aviation world to reconsider long-ignored dangers. Lithium-ion batteries, known for their flammability when stacked in cargo holds, have since been banned from transport on most passenger flights. A decision that may hurt short-term profits, but preserves long-term human life. Yet the legacy of MH370 does not end in the skies. Beneath the deep ocean, once considered unreachable, a new frontier has opened for exploration. Technologies developed in the desperate hunt for the aircraft, like synthetic aperture sonar, autonomous submersibles, and anomaly-detecting AI, are now being used in marine archaeology, deep-sea biology, and even in critical rescue missions, like the Titan submersible tragedy of 2023. MH370 was lost, but its loss became the catalyst for a global awakening. A reminder that no matter how ambitious we become in conquering the skies and seas, we must also learn to listen to what has been forgotten. And sometimes, it is the mysteries that remain unsolved that teach us how to move forward. With caution, with compassion, and with wisdom. When hope becomes the last surviving legacy, there is something strange that happens after every great tragedy. While the rest of the world moves on, those left behind, the families abandoned by fate, remain forever trapped in a moment that has already passed. With MH370, the relatives of the 239 passengers became more than just victims. Over time, they turned into unwilling experts in radar technology, satellite pings, the currents of the southern Indian Ocean, and even the inner workings of Rolls-Royce jet engines. They learned to understand, not out of passion, but because pain would not allow them to stop. From candlelight vigils in Kuala Lumpur to open letters addressed to the United Nations, family groups have tirelessly campaigned to restart the search, defying time, politics, and the growing indifference of the world with each passing year. One mother quietly shared, "We are not looking for someone to blame. We just need to know what happened." It's no longer anger, and not merely hope, but something closer to living memory. A flame that refuses to go out, burning softly within those who have lost too much to accept silence. There are nights they still wake in panic, startled by the sound of a phone. One wife recalled, "Every time the phone rings at midnight, I think, maybe it's him. No body. No final goodbye. No place to lay flowers, or frame a photograph. And so, there is no closure. No funeral. Only waiting. Waiting that stretches across the years, and becomes, in the end, not the crash itself, but the most silent form of torment. An invisible wound that never heals, bleeding each day with a drop of faith that refuses to die. In the darkness of the ocean, hope becomes the final prayer. Not for life, but for an answer. 11 years have passed. Time enough for civilizations to fall. And yet, perhaps not long enough to erase a single signal sent from the depths of the Indian Ocean. What would happen if one day, the Boeing 777, or what remains of it, were found on the ocean floor? The black box, or flight data recorder, though buried under decades of cold sediment, may still hold the truth. The case of Air France Flight 447, which vanished in 2009, stands as a miracle of recovery. It took nearly 2 years to retrieve the black box, but the data inside was preserved. Every sound, every final conversation in the cockpit, was reconstructed, like a slow-motion film of fate unfolding. Because the black box does not merely record technical readings. It captures emotion. The quickened breath. The screech of metal in tight space. The silence, pierced by a whispered, "I'm sorry." Or a final, "We did everything we could." These fragments of sound are not just data. They are witnesses. even if the black box's battery has long since faded. The wreckage itself. Burn marks, jagged edges, impact angles. Would still tell a story. The precise location of the wreck could reveal whether the plane fell in an uncontrolled dive, or if someone had tried, and failed, to make a final emergency landing. But then, a darker question emerges. Do we truly want to know the truth? Part of us longs for answers. For justice, for closure. To end the silence. But another part fears that the truth may not bring peace, but instead rip open old wounds. With images no one dares to imagine. Moments of despair. Final decisions. And souls vanishing. Without a single goodbye. And so, we come to understand. Perhaps the haunting of MH370 lies not in the fact that it disappeared, but in the fact that, even now, it has still not been found. 11 years have passed since that fateful night. The ocean remains silent. Over 120,000 square kilometers of seafloor have been searched. Billions of dollars poured into the most extensive hunt in modern history. And hundreds of theories have been written. From the scientific to the metaphysical. Yet the Boeing 777, Flight MH370, has offered no final word. Perhaps never before has a mystery compelled all of humanity to pause and listen to an absence. A massive airliner vanished. In an age of global positioning, radar, and satellite eyes. This did not merely defy logic. It shook the foundation of a generation's belief that we understand the world. Albert Einstein once said, "The important thing is not to stop questioning." And MH370, like some strange test from the cosmos, has forced us to keep asking, even when no answer comes. Because this search, in the end, is not just a quest for a lost aircraft. It is the plea of mothers who can no longer sleep. It is the gaze of children growing up, never knowing where their father went. It is the tireless effort of scientists, engineers, and divers, who face the cold depths day after day, just to bring back a fragment of truth. And when a civilization refuses to accept forgetfulness, that very refusal becomes a symbol of hope. For perhaps, in the deepest darkness, when all equations fail, only the resilience of the human spirit remains. As the one true light. Sometimes, the brightest light comes from the deepest depths. And if anything still burns beneath the dark Indian Ocean, it is not the beacon of a black box, but the unrelenting will of humanity to never let go. A fragile light, but one that has never gone out.